The other thing is talking about how militarization has changed since September 11th. First, let's talk about militarism and militarization. Militarism, right, set of beliefs and values that stress the use of force, right, and violence is the most appropriate means to solve a problem. It is simply an approach to problem solving. Okay? It's an ideology. Right? It is a theory. Militarization is the actual process of arming, organizing, planning, training for, and sometimes implementing that violent conflict. Okay? It is more the practice part of militarism. Right? In terms of militarization of police, it is a process whereby police increasingly draw from the military model and sometimes military themselves for their appearance, hardware, technology, operations, training, and their ideology. Think of militarization as a continuum, with non-militarization on one end and complete militarization on the other end. Right? Where Pete Kraske and others have discussed this, they say over the last 15 years, police have moved significantly down the continuum, from around here to probably somewhere here, if not farther, depending on who you talk with. Okay, the important part about this increase in militarization is that it has occurred during the time of the community policing revolution. Right, there'll be a panel tomorrow talking about community policing. Rhetoric or not, I'd say this is a good discussion right here. Is it rhetoric? Is the rise of militarization during this time point to the fact that maybe it is more rhetoric than we think? In terms of the impact of militarization on policing, there's three general areas that we'll talk about. One is manpower, meaning training and actual collaboration with the military between police. Second is weapons and technology. And third is ideology. In terms of manpower, right, traditionally we've got Posse Comitatus Act, which has limited how much the police and military can collaborate. Importantly, during the 80s, thanks to the war on drugs, Congress went about kind of removing some of those restrictions, allowing for significant amounts of training and collaboration between the military and the police. There are still restrictions, there are still limitations, what they call military not be direct participant in search, seizure, or arrest, or other similar things, but talking with people in the area, the military and the police sort of get around that in many different ways. Right? Pete cites a case in which local law enforcement and Coast Guard go along on Navy ships for drug interdiction. All right? But the military, the Navy, does not actually make the arrest or the search or seizure. It's just there for a support capacity. Okay? So there are ways to get around it. In terms of weapons and technology, we've gone from a trickle-down to a direct or directed process. As Thomas kept mentioning over and over, the military is heavily invested in this technology. The military is heavily invested in this technology. The military is responsible for a lot of the technical innovations we have right here in this room right now. Traditionally, it's been through a trickle-down though. Okay? Through university grants, the research comes. Through investment in companies, the research comes. And eventually, after the military is done with it, it gets its way into private use and then into policing. What's happened now, though, with the ending of the military-industrial complex, we're coming more towards a directed approach. Okay? What's called dual-use technology. This is a big thing within the Clinton administration, developing dual-use technology. Again, as the military-industrial complex is starting to end, the criminal justice industrial complex is starting to begin. Right. Importantly, Department of Justice and the Department of Defense created a memorandum to work on things known as operations other than war. This resulted in a lot of things, some of which included the creation of law enforcement technology centers throughout the United States, which were for the development of these dual-use technologies, as well as getting more of that directed technology transfer. One of these programs was called the 1033 program. It provides law enforcement with excess military hardware free of charge. Things including clothes, radios, gas masks, sniper rifles, aircraft, helicopters, and my favorite, armored personnel carriers. Importantly, between 89 and 97, over $336 million in weapons and technology was dispersed out in a 7-year period. It's still going on. I don't know the figures since 97, but I'm sure it's probably increased since then. Lastly, we'll talk about ideology. Again, this is pre-9/11. Basically, ideology deals with militaristic operations and problem solving within policing. Right? The thing that Dr. Kraske has done a lot of research on is the rise of what's called the PPU, Paramilitary Police Unit, also known by various other names such as SWAT, HRT, HRU, depends on what country you're from as to what they call it, depends on what county, what city you're from as to what they call it here. Right? Organized originally in the 1960s to deal with high-risk situations such as barricaded suspects, hostage situations, and terrorist events. Right? Where there's been a big change now is in its use. And there's some nice little pictures of what these units look like. Right? Very militaristic in their appearance. Right? The extent of PPUs has been documented extensively by Dr. Crafton. Right? There's been 90% of all large agencies have PPUs. This is about a 50% increase in the 15-year period. Smaller agencies, which serve cities 25 to 50%, or 50,000, have had 70% of them have PPUs. This is a 175% increase. Again, very big increase in the number of agencies that have these units. Again, the importance is how they're being used. If we're going from this traditional use, their traditional development, the traditional call-outs, the reactive mode, towards a more proactive. Okay, there's been a 1,000% increase in their call-outs per year. Right? On average, now about 40,000 a year. Again, importantly, not the reactive nature, but more proactive. Right? 80% of the growth has been in proactive drug raids. Okay, and I'm not talking about drug raids that are huge cartels that they're kicking in the doors for. A lot of times it's small dealers, and the charges that end up are often just possession. In addition, 20% of agencies are using these PPUs for proactive patrol. Literally dressing them up like on the pictures I just showed you, and actually sending them out on patrol. Okay. Importantly, a lot of the agencies feel that this proactive use is consistent with community policing. In the bit of research that I did years ago, the chief of police in the agency that I talked with told me, on tape, I still love this part, he felt that these units were integral to community policing. That what you need to do is to send these units out, take over a community, control it, I swear to God I've got it on tape, control it, and then bring in the community policing units to help. He didn't say re-educate, but he meant to re-educate the community and to help revitalize the community once they've established control.